Sure. Thanks, Ruchi. So basically, as we are here, we are looking to get some brainstorming, some discussions around DevOps, security, new DevOps. So I've got some topics we'll throw across, looking our expertise. I'm an expert champions here. So let's dive into the scalability. What strategy should organizations adopt when using Kubernetes to ensure optimal scalability, right? Ensuring the scalability as well as the over-provisioning, cost optimization. So how can we make a balance, or what is your opinion around these? Uh, Rahman, would you like to go ahead as a starting?
Hello. Yeah. So the Kubernetes is actually just give you means if you are talking about the over provisioning and Kubernetes and scalability. So if you are running the application on a Kubernetes, so scalability is Kubernetes provide you so many feature actually, inbuilt feature to scalability, and over provisioning is directly proportional to your cost, and under provisioning is directly proportional to your performance degrade of your application. So according to me, means what we have learned till now. So in Kubernetes built-in application, the HPA, you can implement the HPA horizontal pod scaling actually, where the by default the CPU and memory you can scale the pods, as well as also the custom matrix you can pulling from the Prometheus and other cluster collector actually. So the pod is auto scale what you required actually, right? So as well as and the second is cluster auto scaler, right? So AWS, if you are running an application on AWS, EKS or anywhere, so you can scale the nodes actually according to your pods. One pod's demanding, then auto scale your nodes. Also, you can configure your resource allocation, means limitation and what you are requesting. So you need to be carefully request your pods, how much memory, how much CPU you need to should give to on that pod. Also, you can use the you can say means monitoring is also important actually. So on a regular basis, auditing and monitoring for the services key, which services or which pod taking how much memory. If someone is you already provided the too much memory and CPU, so you need to be reduced on a regular basis. So this is not a one time, this is a regular task actually. Also you can implement node affinity and taint tolerance in a Kubernetes. So compute pods is actually deploy on a compute node, and memory, which pods is consuming too much memory actually. So that pod is deployed on a memory optimized nodes actually. So these strategy you can actually follow, right? Everyone is agree?
So just to add what Mr. Rahman has said, so the HPA, VPA that we can implement along with cluster autoscaler. So there are different other additional tools that we can add like KEDA. So normally we only monitor the CPU or matrices and memory, but using KEDA you can use your custom matrices. On the basis of that you can scale. Apart from it, another one is just want to add like KRR. So that is Kubernetes recommendation request. So that is one tool. So that helps you to check like whether based on the Prometheus matrices, you can check whether you can scale or scale up or scale down. Are the setted request and limits are correct or not? So yes, so that is one thing you can do. And just another thing is on the memory side. So you should keep your request and limits on the memory side equivalent. So you should keep them same. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rahman. Thanks, Amit. You rightly said that using HPA, auto cluster, request, limit, KEDA, definitely these are useful tools, and like maybe we can also use Carpenter. There are multiple tools are there. There are other tools like OpenCost, KubeCost. They also give a good amount of, there are a lot of open source and solutions are there, definitely. It's a great thing to do, but with a cost conscious mind and then using the right tool. Yeah. So let's take it ahead. I mean, moving towards more of an automation mode, GitOps, like everybody might be using it or looking around it. So what are the challenges organizations might be facing in using GitOps, and how can we ensure a smooth transition towards a version controlled infrastructure, continuous deployments? And if I ask further, how can we build a synergy between Kubernetes and GitOps towards our operational efficiency, and what can be the more measurable outcomes so that we have the matrices to track and report and ensure that they are within the compliances and like helping implementing these technologies. Anyone want to go ahead? Maybe Rahman, you are done in Kubernetes.
So GitOps means this is actually new word for in the market actually. So you can say what is GitOps? But first of all, just what is GitOps? So if your infrastructure actually managed through the Git repository and an automated version, so according to me, this is a GitOps. Means if you want to change anything in your repository, automatic change on your Kubernetes cluster or whatever cloud platform you are using, like AWS or GKE or whatever. So and actually organization, it's too difficult, means it's the implementation of the GitOps is really complex actually in the market. Ki whatever the last 10 year back something is configured on your AWS and you want to replicate the things in on a GitOps. So it's too difficult, and you can implement gradually actually. One by one things is actually gradually one project you can take and implement the properly in your organization, and then second implement, then top level of the organization or organization you can implement the GitOps, right? And the synergy actually between the Kubernetes and GitOps, so both are the declarative actually infrastructure, so you can everything is put up in a YAML, so you can use a tool like Helm actually. So Helm put in your code actually, all of the YAML file is implemented once you run the GitOps repository actually. Just once you push or merge in your Git repository, so automatically the YAMLs and the configuration parts is actually just created. So the security and the what is the benefit of the organization? So the benefit is actually you can say the speedy the deployment. First of all, you can deploy the speedy single source of truth, which is most important right now actually. Someone in your team, DevOps team or anyone who have access actually, just change in any security group, you cannot find out actually how the system change actually until you are enable the audit log and all those things. So it will take too much time, and your application is down on that time between. So the single source of truth, you are using the GitOps, everything is changed through the GitOps, otherwise the rollback and desired state actually. So many complexity, but and you need to be implement the right tool for the right application, means someone using Jenkins for CI/CD, someone using GitHub Action, someone using GitLab Runner, so anything CD. So you need to be modernize the application, modernize the tool, and integrate the tool. Tooling integration is most important actually. So someone using the GitLab, someone GitHub, someone Bitbucket, someone is SVN is still running on SVN. So it's really very difficult actually. You need to be, first of all, you need to be modernize your application, as well as you actually integrate the tooling sets, as well as the cultural implementation. And the customize the drifting actually, someone is change the in AWS directly on a console panel. So it should be restricted, but the benefit is really tremendous benefit. The single source of truth, everything is actually just you can find out the issue is soon actually.
Got it. Thanks, Rahman. Anyone wants to add another point? Maybe Pankaj? Yeah.
So as Rahman mentioned clearly that we need to first understand what is the GitOps. So it all started with single source of truth in application code. Eventually we realized that we should maintain the state of our infrastructure also in a version controlled manner, which can be reconciled to the desired state whenever required. So with this mindset, GitOps evolved. We started putting our infrastructure code also in the Git version controlled manner, and with tools like Argo CD and similar types of tools, reconciliation to the desired state, continuously monitoring the single source of truth, applying back to the infrastructure, automating this whole process becomes easy. So, and when we move from traditional to the GitOps things, with all these things, it's a cultural shift which organizations needs to adapt. Why it's a cultural shift? Because traditionally we used to maintain our secrets, environment variable, infrastructure related details, either manually or some server or somewhere, right? Taking backup, AMI and all sort of things. But now we are moving towards more tooling automated way where we can maintain it in the version controlled manner, which requires lots of training, skill set, and mind changing of the organization, not only for the DevOps, but equally for the engineering team. So a cultural shift, as Rahman mentioned, lots of tooling complexity, because the organization might be using some set of tools already, but now they are moving to GitOps. So they have to marry all the tools, right? To start with, at least no organization will roll out in full phase, full blown in one go, right? So they have to marry and gradual rollout. This will be a big challenge, one of the things. With GitOps, when we implemented GitOps, we found that challenge actually starts at scale. So let's say you are in your environment, there are 200s of builds and deployments happening parallelly. Then we start feeling the performance, latency, failures, API rate limiting. Your Bitbucket will start throwing you rate limiting, GitHub will start throwing you rate limiting. So proper design solutioning is required, knowing the scale at which you are operating before moving to GitOps.
Got it. Thanks, Pankaj, and thanks, Rahman. Definitely, it's a valid point. Infrastructure as code, declarative statements, and then getting infrastructure as part of the coding practices, as well as kind of PR reviews. So something I would like to add some around the tooling side. Basically, I've seen like tools like Argo CD we have used in a couple of organizations, fintechs. We have used Spinnaker. The last one we were using Flux CD. Again, it's an open source where you bring the actual Git structure around your code, around the developer's code, around the Helm charts, so that you can manage it seamlessly, and then it's helping getting the infrastructure as a practice, as a code to the developer's hands. They can themselves do the deployments. They don't need not depend on the DevOps person basically. So yeah, I think that's a valid point. All of us agree. Moving further in the GitOps, I mean, like I would say, when the complexity increases, we have multiple environments. We say we want to go full GitOps. We have multiple complex environments, dev, QA, right, performance, and then the production, somewhere non-production, a lot of environments. So how do you think we can overcome the issues around these or the architecture so that our GitOps model can work in the complex scenario? Maybe Siddharth, you want to go ahead if you have any?
Sure. We all have been discussing the same thing for GitOps and its implementations plus some of its challenges. And like Pankaj mentioned, and I kind of agree with it. I think since the time we have been focusing more on the operations side of everything with respect to, you take GitOps, DevOps, DataOps, FinOps, InfraOps, whatever you call it. Everything has an operations overhead on top of it, right? So simplifying the operations overhead from a developer's perspective is actually challenging. You can bring in 10 tools into the picture, but how to use that tool, how to make sure that the operations team is at the same level as of your developers to understand the process of that tool becomes very challenging. For me, I think the major learning curve is that the team should be aligned with the same goals. Everyone should be on the same page that, so far we have never thought about pushing the infra code also onto Git. It has always been the developer side, right? But now we are pushing our Terraform scripts or our Helm scripts or our Kubernetes scripts onto infra, on Git repository. That same operations guy who's writing that YAML needs to have that learning curve of Git repositories also. How do you make a commit? How do you roll back a commit? How do you lock a state file? How do you make sure that there are no merge conflicts? And like you guys were mentioning, a rollback and a deployment to freeze that state, to make sure that there is a single source of truth in terms of a repository. So for me, I feel it's more of an operation. It's an human overhead, which is very important to make sure that the learning curve is set before we actually ask our team to get into it. The second aspect I would say is, okay, so we have the tools, but one single tool will help you perform the automation. But there are a lot of small aspects which needs to be covered. How are you managing your secrets? How are you making sure your code is secure? How are you making sure, there are secret managers, there is a vault, and there are so many services which are coming. Open source tools also, licensed products also, that give you that flexibility of integrating the secrets while your GitOps operation or your pipeline is running. You mentioned about Argo CD, Flux CD, all these tools will make sure that your deployment is automated, right? But feeding in these key aspects, which is also very important to complete that overall deployment. So that is why I feel while GitOps has been very helpful, but running it in an operational setup, how many developers you have, how many repos are you maintaining, do you have a multi-cloud environment, that is also challenging. The good thing is nowadays every tool is cloud agnostic because they have already figured that out, but that we cannot stick to one single tool. If I bring a tool in the market which is not cloud agnostic, 90% of people won't use it. Because today or tomorrow, you will go multi-cloud or hybrid cloud or maybe on-prem also for that matter. That is also coming into the picture now. People have started migrating to on-prem as well. So that is also one thing which gives a very well flexibility. But if in order to implement that in a multi-cloud setup does again require a lot of tools, but more than that, human knowledge and acceptance of running those tools.
Yeah, so I need to add one thing actually in this actually. So in a Terraform you can manage you asked me the UAT production and all those things, right? So one of the tool is actually in one layer upper of the Terraform is actually TerraGrunt, right? So TerraGrunt is resolve this type of complexity. So you can define the variable on every UAT, prod, pre-prod, anywhere, and just run the TerraGrunt plan and apply and init whatever. So it's awesome, man. Means it's just awesome. Yeah, it's a topology and dry run. You can run the dry run and everything. So TerraGrunt is awesome tool for managing these things.
Okay, just want to add, I mean, the more complexities in the GitOps is, I mean, though it is of course helpful, it helps us with the state management. That means you can actually roll back and roll out when the future states. One of the drawback that I would see is, of course, the state drift. Now, what is state drift is, for example, you might have implemented GitOps, but someone might have changed the state directly on the infra level. So how does it roll back? So basically it helps so some of the tools basically helps you there where when someone directly changes on the infra, so you can actually roll back to the desired state which is in the GitOps. So of course the state drift is one of the problem that some of the organization might feel where the process is not established and the DevOps or maybe the developers directly have access to their management console. The second point is, of course, how do you maintain the secrets? So when you push everything into your Git, basically for version control, of course, again, precautions have to be taken on how do you manage the secrets, because now all the infra level secrets or infra level tokens, everything would have been pushed. So you need to be careful when you use GitOps as your, automated deployment strategy. The other thing is, of course, the legacy environment that you might have. Everything cannot be moved to GitOps. So again, it has to be very well defined where you're using GitOps for your automated deployments. So yeah, I mean, these are some of the things that I feel which has to be taken care when you actually implement a GitOps strategy for your environments. And of course, regarding the UAT and prod, I think the deployment strategy has to be agnostic to your environments. It has to be directly a promote strategy. So it need not be, I mean, again, it's very loosely used UAT dev. It has to be just a staging and a prod. That's what I feel. And staging can be used by any person, by QA or dev. So GitOps has to be planned in such a way so that you can either promote either in the dev or in the QA so that it can be used by multi team members. So yeah, these are some of the things that I feel needs to be taken care of.
Thanks, Siddharth, Ankur, and Rahman. Definitely it's a mix of things we have to take care while implementing GitOps in terms of security, in terms of scalability, right? And then in terms of the culture and the different tools you're mentioning. Definitely that's a great point. Thanks. So if you talk further about the security automation, how does the security automation play a role in terms of application security, and what toolings we should think around in terms of security? How can you balance the speed with the security in terms of the overall structure of GitOps, right, and deployment? And any thoughts, maybe Amit, if you want to go?
Okay, so why there is a requirement for security automation? So first thing, we want to early predict the issues, so that will help us to remediate it. The other thing is like human beings can prolong to errors at times. So that is also one thing if we add it into the life cycle, so that will help us. And continuous monitoring that is required. So that is also one of the key aspects. So that's push us to go into the security automation direction. And if we say when we want to do security automations, and then there are different tools that we can use from the start of your SDLC lifecycle till end. So for example, like in our SDLC lifecycles, we can use for SAST, we can use SonarCube as a tool. There are check marks which can be used. There are other components like DAST for which we can use Burp Suite. So that is one thing on the live web application. You can do testing. There are container securities. There are image scannings. For image scanning, you can use Trivi. There are other Aqua security tools as well. And on the other front, there are source for which we need to do continuous monitoring. So there are, as Siddharth told earlier for GitOps, so there are secret managements which needs to be done. So there are tools like HashiCorp Vault, which can be consumed. So we can leverage those tools while we are using it. There are linting practices that you can use in Terraform. So while you are doing infrastructure as a code, you can use TF linting. So all these are practices that needs to be embedded while you are doing all your automation practices around the security as well.
Thanks, Amit. Anyone wants to add anything? Okay, I think we are good. Amit already covered the whole ground, different security toolings, practices, right? And then linting in the Terraform. So it's definitely a must-have thing to do. I mean, the HashiCorp, the security vault, I mean, like all those things, I would say definitely, well, let's look forward towards these. And if you talk about the basic question, I mean, just taking a step back, when we talk about DevOps, so there are different teams involved, development, operations. Now we say DevSecOps, again, operations, security teams comes in place. QA also plays a role there. So what are the strategies which organizations should think for effective collaboration between all these teams and still do a good justice to the delivery? Any challenges you guys have seen or any thoughts you guys have around it? Maybe Nitesh, you have not spoken, you want to go ahead?
I think from a collaboration standpoint, what is key is that the communication is something which should be crystal clear. All the teams should have a shared understanding of why is it that we are going about this exercise, what is the expectation, what is the outcome, what is the responsibility of each stakeholder in that process. And then I think it is important that the security program is implemented in a way that as much as possible it's part of the SDLC process. It is integrated and the defects are visible to the engineers as part of the same backlog which they have for feature development, for defects and everything else. Because once you do that, you are bringing the same level of importance and visibility to security defects also. Otherwise, if it is in a separate tool or somewhere where the visibility is not shared, you run the risks of collaboration not being as impactful. Because the security teams are doing their things in silo, the engineering teams are going about feature development, and there is no shared visibility of the security program. The defect backlog is then not clearly understood. And I think what is also important is that there is buy-in from the leadership. You've got to set the expectation right. You've got to have this buy-in to get the right level of resourcing into the picture, because the time spent on addressing the security defects is going to be some time withdrawn from feature development. Yeah. You've got the same amount of time. Now, how do you set the prioritization? Right? And that is where there could be a tussle from another stakeholder. It is your product teams. They want new features out of the door, but the security teams, the infra teams, they also want the security posture to be improved, which is also the right expectation. So in a scenario like that, the engineers could be stuck between, which is the most important piece, because for each stakeholder, their expectation is the most important. So the leadership buy-in helps set the prioritization right. For example, in our organization, what we've done is we have set the security defects at the same level of prioritization as the production incidents. And everything else comes afterwards. And this is an expectation set across all the stakeholders, including the product team, so that there is no negotiation, there is no ifs and buts. This prioritization governs how the engineers will tackle the security defects.
Thanks a lot, Nitesh. Anyone wants to add anything?
So I would like to add in this, because DevSecOps is one of the emerging area that most of us have started hearing and practicing. So we need to understand that when development, operations, mostly DevOps and security team, in most of the organization, these are separate teams. With separate teams, silos happens, natural. Coordination takes lots of time. Prioritization takes lots of time, bandwidth. So in order to solve these all areas, new emerging terms coming up, DevSecOps, which is a cultural shift for that matter. And cultural shift can't happen with processes only. So coordination is legacy in terms while processes. But now we need tools, applications, automations to drive the culture. So I was in the conversation with some of the organizations. So they are building unified observability over the security, which gives insights of the whole SDLC process for the security events, post SDLC, production, non-production, all security events in one view. Now consider that if we have such tool, one or many such tools, which are shared across the teams, they have right accesses, they can view, track, measure, take action, take recommendations and fix. Security vulnerability is there, but what if the recommendation is already there in the tool with the help of AI ML? Developers see that recommendation, remediate it, close it. So coordination, so with these types of tools, I believe the coordination of requirement itself drastically reduced by 70-80% sort of. And the security and DevOps team focuses more on the library framework and keeping these applications talking to each other instead of coordination. Along with that, wherever humans are involved, obviously there will be some sort of conflict, professional, healthy, prioritization and all sort of thing. For that, I believe right set of communication processes should be there, like frequent meeting with directors, leaders, giving them the overview of why these security issues needs to be addressed, that it will bring business trust issues, and frequent meeting with the developers to help them understand why it needs a prioritization. And with the right set of tools, I believe this coordination can be better.
Got it. Thanks, Pankaj, and thanks again, Nitesh. So rightly said, I would say that ensuring that we have a proper collaboration, weightage, buy-in from the leadership, right? And putting the tools across, maybe building some observability, as you mentioned, using the tools, and then no ifs and buts around the security. And like as Amit said in the past, a few minutes back, around the shift left culture. So all those things comes together and helps definitely the DevSecOps environment and the toolings. You have to explore more towards the shift left, maybe SaaS tools, right? Some IS tools have come in place, some desk tools have come in place, and building a stronger dashboard, from which leadership can get a stronger buy-in to move to get the support and maybe make a part of roadmap to develop these things. Yeah, thanks. So going further on the security, though, it's a critical importance. So you may say that I'm dragging it, but I don't. But these are still critical. So what are the still emerging trends in the security we see in our organizations, in the application security, and how can we better prepare for it? The world is evolving. Had the security been in one place, it have been fixed till now. So still we see a lot of scope improvement in all the organizations. So still want to know more. Anyone has any insights? Maybe Siddharth.
Sure, good, thank you. So before I answer this question, I would just want to add another pointer, like my fellow panelists had on the previous question. And I kind of agree with two things that they mentioned. Management buy-in, first of all, is very important. Because people have a very strong misconception that only a production downtime is critical. only a production downtime is P0. But they need to understand that a security vulnerability or a security hack or a, anything with respect to security is P-1. That will not just only impact your business, your reputation, it will cause you downtime, revenue loss, monetary loss. It will also, to fix a security issue and then to have a compliance and regulation followed up upon that, it's a very tedious process. It is not that your container or your pod is down, you restart a new pod and your service is up. It's not that easy, right? So security issues, if God forbid, if you have a security issue in your system, you have to go through an entire process to not just fix it, but then the repercussions of it is also very problematic. So that is why management buy-in to understand that this is critical. And at the same time, another pointer which was raised was again very well, and I think every one of us would face it. Product manager, for example, would understand that, for them, feature delivery is important. Feature time पे जाना चाहिए, that is important. अब पीछे आपने, as a tech dev, आपके पास 10 ticket पड़ी है, nobody cares, nobody is bothered about it, right? For your you have a label with security tech devs and you have 20 in your backlog, but in the sprint you have only feature deliveries. And that is what everybody focuses on, correct? Because what you're putting up in the application to the customer is more important. But making sure that that entire feature delivery will be put into backlog if one security conflict occurs, that is very important. And that will only come when the management understands this point and everyone comes on the same page. Otherwise, the devs or the CISOs or the data protection officers or your DevSecOps team will just keep on pleading to your PMs and EMs that, please take this also apart from the features. Now, coming back to the question that you raised, so, because security has been a very biggest paramount at this point of time for everyone, and everyone outside in the world is working on it, and I'm sure the attackers or hackers who are sitting outside are also learning and every day, and with AI ML coming into the picture, they are even coming with a stronger background of making sure they can bring some system down. From the same concept, I feel it is very important that we also, strengthen our gardening. It is very important, like you mentioned about shift lefts, right? And what does shift left says? Go to the inception of the code. Where is the code being developed at the developer system, at that particular ID? So if you have something at the ID itself which can track the vulnerabilities, which can assess the code base, which can raise an alarm right there itself, it becomes very easy for you to track it while not just waiting for it to come in the production environment and somebody is raising it for you. So a lot of tools which are coming into the market in terms of integrating in this, you were talking about linting, right? TF lint, Sonar also had the lint tool, right? So you integrate it in the system itself. While you are writing the code, it will tell you the vulnerabilities, and you will very well make sure that, okay, these things doesn't come in my code base before I put it into an environment. The second thing I feel is, apart from the tools, it is also very important that every stakeholder, as part of the SDLC pipeline, understands security. This is not just a job of a DevSecOps engineer or a security engineer or a IT CISO team. The onus relies on everyone in the SDFC lifecycle. In today's world, the SDFC lifecycle is replaced by a DevOps pipeline, because whatever you are developing and publishing is coming via DevOps pipeline. That is where we have integrated security also, and we call it DevSecOps. Now, be it a developer or a QA tester or an automation engineer or your operations guy, everyone should take the responsibility that whatever we are developing and putting in production should at least be gone through a basic minimal check for vulnerability, for code scanning, or whatever it is. The third thing is the tools in the market. I mean, you have so many tools. We have, there's a Prisma by Palo Alto, there's Snake, the Datadog has the same thing. In fact, every tool is bringing the security aspect into it so that you club it with your pipelines and they'll make sure they scan everything, whatever you have. Having that into the system, making sure your keys, your secrets are very well secure, it is not easily accessible. Your PII information is not being leaked from your logs. That is where you're keeping the onus on. Proactive approaches. So all of this might be reactive, but with AI ML coming into the system and tools who are reading from your logs and giving you the dashboards which automatically tells you that this is what the pattern has been and you should fix it. So that proactive approach using some AI ML models, and a lot of tools are already doing that. You can just quickly integrate and get the job done. So I feel with all of this integrated, but then again, like my previous answer, I would say one thing that, your tools are as good as you are. The tool will do only whatever you have been, you have told the tool to do so. To utilize the tool to the best of its capability depends upon you. how much understanding you have of your infra, of the issues that you are facing, and what you can take out of it. Similarly, every person in the organization should take the onus of this security. Only then I feel that we'll be at a stage where we can say that we can never be sure that we are secure, but we can at least say that we have taken the right approach.
Thanks, Siddharth. Anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I want to add on this. Anyway, everything is covered. So there was a question regarding regarding the speed of the speed of release, because ultimately, if you are doing the code scanning, obviously it's a first principle thinking that you have to do code scan of your of each and every PR, right? And you have to make sure that there are minimum amount of leakage that whenever we went to production. But there's another drawback with respect to that. What is like what will happen to my release cycle velocity? Okay, what will be how will going to handle the delay? Right. So now the products, even the enterprise level products like Sumo Logic, even Datadog, they have matured that at that level that this security is actually, that the test of security is not only done at the code level, but at the infrastructure level. Even they check on the logs level that the critical information, like for example, as per the GDPR, for example, the customer phone number is very critical. And people tend to print those information in the logs of your services, right? So these tools has been so much matured now that they even detect those that if you say that my application should be GDPR compliant, so they actually check at that level that the particular masking is done or not in your logs, right? So it's not only synchronous process, which is code scanning, it's also asynchronous process. We are checking the CloudTrail logs or your application logs, even your CloudWatch logs to identify, because see, as you're going in the future, you have to understand that I can't reduce my velocity considering there is obviously a friction of the security that I have to take. So we have to build those solutions in parallel, which will actually can give us the results in the asynchronous manner, so that the code has been pushed, but in the asynchronous manner, I get the output, and based on that, I can take the decision. So you can say, like, I am putting the code as a 1% to the audience because the security is going to take time. So it will give me the report, for example, after 1 hour. And after 1 hour, I can scale it to 50 or 100%. So in that sense, your velocity of like release is also maintained, and you are able to do all the tests when you are pushing the code to production.
Definitely, I mean, very valid point, Prateek and Siddharth, that velocity is important, and then how we can predict using the tools, the attacks, different flow logs, VPC flow logs, maybe CloudWatch flow logs, different logs we have. I also encountered a scenario, I will just take 2 minutes. There that we used to have a lot of DDoS attacks. I was in a media organization, and daily we were getting attacks. We were putting new WAF, new rate limiting again, but we were getting attacks. Attacks were getting smarter. So we had to explore something. There may be some vulnerability in our code and maybe some at the surface level, but they were still getting the right authentication they were getting in the system. So finally we had to go with the other aspects like reCAPTCHA. We had to go in. We had to enable security questionnaires for the things. We have seen on a lot of websites, but we were not using those kind of scenarios. We even had a mining attack, a crypto mining attack we had to face. So basically it's like evolving anything, and then some of the new features came in handy, like I mentioned the reCAPTCHA. Then again we explored Amazon, this guard duty. I mean, there a lot of other tools might be there in the market, but we were on the AWS, so we went on those things. So basically, we have to keep a lot of watch out across these things. I remember I was in a Paytm organization that in those days, we have a Log4j vulnerability, 0-day vulnerability. And the whole thing was just cracking. We were getting a lot of letters from RBI, resolve this thing or the license, those things will have a penalty. So it's basically a evolving arena, and maybe our CISOs definitely can come as handy. I mean, CISOs and CTOs there, they have a good job to play around in the top of the things and maybe do a better collaboration with the leadership, with the DevOps, with the infrastructure. Definitely that's a really need of our. Yeah, you want to say something?
Ankur, since you raised the point of DDoS and you have touched one of the important areas, so I want to speak for 20-30 seconds. We were facing lots of DDoS attack, variety. We put lots of rules on the WAF level, code level, here and there, rate limiting, all sort of things, and no success. So which led us to build custom homegrown DDoS protector. We named it as antibiotic agent. It keeps running over the whole infrastructure. A developer is also here with my team. So it will detect different type of patterns. So DDoS not only comes with high throughput of request, they will meet your rate limiting requirement, but they will annoy the user. For example, if you have set OTP, 1 minute, 1 request, 1 OTP, they will meet that requirement, but they will annoy your real user. I can annoy you, right? Someone else, or OTP on call. So we have to build these types of custom requirement in that homegrown tool to protect our user, where request throughput is not very high, but we detect, okay, illegitimate, block it. So thanks for raising this pointer.
Yeah, you have touched the दुखती रथ पे हाथ रख दिया, I think, after DDoS की बात करके. So just another 10 to 20 seconds on the same point. So similarly, just Pankaj mentioned, so in 2020 actually, when just exactly when COVID started. So I think that was the time, 2020, 2021, it was happening for everyone. Because everyone was sitting at home, attackers bhi ghar baithe hain, kuch nahi karne ko, they were just running DDoS for everyone. And we at Baazi also were under tremendous DDoS for, I mean, we had almost for a couple of months we were under DDoS, 10,000 different IPs. We actually have an official case study by AWS done on us on the same thing, because those 6 months were just hell. But like Pankaj mentioned, every new day, there was a new attack that used to come on the surface. Today's DDoS, कल Sinflood है, कभी UDP है, कभी TCP recognition है, and आधे DOS के तो नाम तब पता चले थे कि यार ये भी होता है क्या? That is actually true. I mean, obviously, when you talk about DDoS, you would name 3-4 attacks and that is it. But the attacker sitting there is so smart that he's seeing everything, whatever fix you are deploying. He's again scanning the same process, and now he's like, "Acha, ye fix kar diya, now I'll try this." Maybe he was also just trying to figure out what else can I do. And every day we used to sit in the night and analyze that, what do we do now? How do we protect the infra now? I mean, in our WAF, we have more than 50 custom rules, just custom, not basic rate limiting or regex, only custom rules based on the header, on the body, of what cookies are coming, what user agent is coming, because they, like you mentioned, they know, acha, rate limit hai, abhi to AWS ne rate limiting apna 1 minute kar diya, earlier used to be 5 minutes for 100 request, right? So wo rate limiting ke andar backend mein reh ke, they'll keep on running the DDoS. So that's why I feel that, in fact, last Saturday I was at a conference in Mumbai. That was a cybersecurity conference, and one gentleman in the audience asked that, are we ahead of the attackers, or are they ahead of us? And I gave a very blunt answer that 100% they are ahead of us. And I'm not ashamed in saying this. Why? Because we are sure about what security measures we can opt, and because we are looking from a security point of view. But they are 24/7 just thinking about how else can we bring them down.
So just two more topics I have to just touch through. Regarding the containerized applications, we just touched Kubernetes, a small topic only. So if we talk about containerized applications, APIs, how can we bring more security around the containerized applications from DevOps perspective, so that all the security challenges are addressed, we're using the right images maybe, or whatever the things to secure it in terms of API management, microservices architecture, what are the best practices? So basically, I want to know like what kind of challenges you guys might have seen or like solved them, or any suggestions you have across these. Maybe Prateek. Yeah.
So very basic, important stuff that people supposed to do, like never ever use public images, right? Your image should be signed image, okay, and try to use the images which are been approved by a particular license, okay. So most of the time, what happens in containerized, whenever you create Docker images, like whatever the version that you are going to use, you are using a particular image which is fulfilling your purpose without understanding that, okay, what is the threat or what is the security, what kind of, is that image has passed the security protocol or not? Okay, so the first best practice is try to read the Docker file of that particular image, okay, and create your own base signed image so that you understand what are the vulnerabilities are there in that image, okay. So that is the first thing that you should do as part of containerized, like in order to avoid that vulnerability in the containerized application. Second thing is like secrets. People tend to use, put your secrets in the code base or in the configuration files or in the properties file, right? As the first principle, as the first principle in any software development life cycle, right? We should put our secrets in a secret manager or a vault. There are lots of tools available in the market, and make sure that secrets should get inject at runtime whenever the Docker is getting loaded. and your service is getting up. So ultimately, your secret should put into the environment files, environment variables automatically, and should be picked up from there. So these are the couple of vulnerabilities that people found whenever they attempt to develop it for the first time or make it move to production for the first time.
Thanks, Prateek. Anyone wants to add? I mean, maybe Rahman or Amit, anyone?
Yeah, so if you're talking about the API actually, so security of the API, once you are using the microservices, so you have so many APIs. And the hacker actually have so many gates, okay? So first you need to ensure actually ki you have only one gate to enter, like API gateway, Conga, Nginx, Apache, whatever actually. So on that gate actually you can implement all of the security actually, right? Rate limiting, throttling, blocking, anything means you can apply on that gate. If you have opened so many gates, so you cannot apply the security on all gates actually. So you need to be ensure that the single gate, any API is, also you can ensure that which API is internal, means server to server call actually. So you need to be use that Kubernetes auto discovery feature, means the pod to pod interconnected. Also in 29 and 27 actually just they implement the network topology actually. So which pod communicate with the which pod actually, you can define that through the network. So in auto discovery you can use any API you need to be exposed on public. So on the API gateway or Conga anywhere you can use this server to server call. You can use the secure server to server call like the mutual TLS actually or TLS SSL. You can use this. So many things you need to be implement on an API gateway.
Got it. I mean, and yeah, Ankur, you want to add something?
Yeah, so there are certain tools as well like Prisma, which actually does a image scanning as well. So actually we can use those. I won't say you cannot use public images, it's just that whatever vulnerabilities are there, you scan it and identify those and rectify. So you can use certain tools and scan those images and resolve all those vulnerabilities which are there.
Yeah, thanks.
Just 5 seconds.
Sure.
So very basic one, but try not to use root user in your Docker files. So please avoid that, as well as just keep running some runtime container security tools like Felco or similar tools, so that at times any threat comes, then you should be covered. And you should be having role-based access, RBAC applied onto your Kubernetes containers, because see, these providing you good features, but yes, you need to maintain the security as well at the same time.
Definitely. I mean, all the valid points, it's a long list to summarize, but what I will suggest that create a checklist and maybe follow it very religiously, and maybe if we can automate it, right, so that automatically if anything violates, it gets triggered, some alert around it. And this is one of the best practices, basically the need of the hour. Like a lot of attacks, and like even our Indian government is going towards the DPDP. So it's more critical these days, and for at least for the startups and like growing organizations, I would say. So the last one topic I had in mind, we talk a lot about AI, machine learning. How can we leverage it to improve our threat detection? Though I think someone touched us in brief, but if someone has more insights around it, how can we detect it? How we can put a better response for our security operations? What challenges if someone has implemented AI they might have seen, or we can get into? How can we overcome these challenges? If anyone really can share their learnings, will be really fruitful for everybody, I would say.
Yeah, so Ankur, I am taking. So obviously with security operations, the major responsibility if we see security operations or SOC. So one of the key responsibilities is threat detection, real time, as early as possible, and faster incident response. With the legacy way of doing security operations center is manually checking the logs, security events, incidents, collaborating with various DevOps engineering team, getting insights, solving it. With AI ML, the promising thing is that it can learn. It can detect new type of threats very easily. So for example, dark trace. With very high accuracy, very high precision, it can detect new type of threats based on the past threats, and which can reduce incident response time by 70-80%, because most of the time goes in figuring out whether it's a threat or not and classifying it. Along with that, with Gen AI being the newer generation AI and showing promising way of automating most of the incident response, we believe with these types of tools, incident response time will get lower, and we will get more toward the predictive analytics. There are tools which can predict that in 1 month or 2 months down the line, what type of attacks can happen with accuracy. So if we know that after 1 month these attacks can happen and we take a proactive measures, so we can protect ourselves, right? And the organizations who have adopted these technologies have reported 50% less breaches, which is promising. So all these tools, with at least with AI, ML, predictive analytics, and data trace type tools, we can be more proactive in security. Current SOC is reactive. Threat is there, identify it. By the time damage is already done. So I believe with this we can improve a lot.
Got it. Thanks, Pankaj. I mean, rightly said that AI can definitely help us. It's us how we can leverage it, how we can further explore these challenges around the AI and then solve them. Though it's still a learning area, evolving area, so let's keep looking towards it. Anyone, if has any points, please feel free to add.
One liner just, while making sure your AI ML model is securing your infra, also make sure your AI ML model is secure. So that is just one thing.
Just one addition to the predictive analysis, that can be used by signatureless. They can adopt from the signature. If your current predictive or the models that are created, if they find out those are not signatured, then that can automatically create a threat detection and you can monitor on those.
And not just in terms of prediction and threat detection. You can also use today AI to help you learn, secure coding practices, GitHub Copilot, and such tools, which are now the talk of the town. You can get a lot of detailed help and support from these tools to help you write secure code. So while on one front, on the other end, it is the detection capabilities, but at the other end of the spectrum, it is also helping you write secure code in the first place. So that's also another angle we could leverage.
And definitely, I mean, all my colleagues, I would say, have rightly said around the security practices, AI, using AI for the better security practices as well as the threat detection. And multiple tools have come in, like ChatGPT is there, GitHub Copilot, Amazon has launched Amazon Q, Gemini from Google, and most of them have their paid versions as well. So yeah, let's use AI and see how we can evolve the word, how, right? And further, side by side, we have to still ensure that AI is secure, as you mentioned. So we have to ensure the security of the AI, because if AI gets hacked, then it's totally different word altogether.
One of the biggest challenge, Ankur, I believe we all have to know while incorporating AI is the compliance and governance and data privacy. Never overlook this. Just talk to your legal team and then go ahead with that. Just don't overlook directly.
DPDP is there, and definitely we have to enable those security organizations, the lawyers, the DPDP enthusiasts, because we are the governing force. We can help them grow and then evolve. They can put a block, this is not there, don't use this thing. But we have to find a way of securely using it. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all.